Hey guys, Crap here, and welcome back to World of Tanks. Woo! And welcome to the patch 9.9 test server. Huzzah! Yes, patch 9.9 has arrived, and with it, a new first impressions. So, if you don't know the formula by now, or you're new to the channel, don't worry, I shall explain. Basically, what this will entail is I shall go along 2 episodes. The first episode of this series will be me talking about the new features, showing you stuff in the garage, and sort of giving my initial thoughts, my reactions to certain things, be them good or bad. Obviously, also going to be asking for your feedback to say what do you think of certain changes that will be coming up in the World of Tanks series, and all that. And depending on the variation of content, the first episode can always either be kind of short because of what's going on in the first iteration, of which, before I go on, this is the first iteration of the test server, so not everything you see is guaranteed to hit live or the second iteration. So don't think that this is what they're going to implement as soon as you see it. They can change as well. And if you're into more of the gory details, because there are a fair amount of gory details in this particular patch, then do go to the link description down below, whereupon there is a link for that. But if you are more of a gory blood, guts, and shooter kind, do not worry, the second episode is all about that gun, as we're basically going to be taking these particular new vehicles into the fray, or slightly better looking vehicles depending on what's going on, into the fray with my good friend Nimbus, or without, depending on if he can or cannot record. And basically we give our initial thoughts and talk about the future, as whether or not certain patches may be beneficial or not beneficial to our current careers in World of Tanks. So, if you are all for blood, guts, and gore, if you wait till now, there is a link for you right popping up in an annotation, or if you go to the description, there is also a link for the second video. So, thank you very much for watching this particular bit, and I will see you in the next episode. Okay, so thank you very much to all those who've stayed. I will try and make this entertaining and as short as possible. So, what is new in patch 9.9? Well, this is the first iteration, so if there is a second iteration, I will try and get on and do some videos on it, or a video at least on it. But no, this first iteration isn't really filled with content as such. It's more of a get stuff in the background working, / give a few more vehicles a HD brush up. There's actually 14 in total, which is a fair amount. Unfortunately, I couldn't quite get all of them, because some of them are no longer being sold. Some of them are only reward tanks. I think, yeah, there's the only 2 reasons. And, oh yeah, no, and also some of them are for those who participated in the beta for World of Tanks, and, you know, all other things, gift tanks, which I just don't have, because I don't have them. So I can't really show you all of them, but I have gotten all the tanks that you can get, and that are a premium that you can get as well. We will be going on to those. And also, there is a couple of new replacement vehicles. You can see one of them at the bottom of the screen, but we will not go on to him just yet. I wanted to talk, first of all, about the engine improvements. Now, for me, I'm quite looking forward to seeing what they can do with this, because this is the first patch since they released the 9.8 where you could have a separate launcher. Now, they are working on both of the launchers, though admittedly the standard launcher, on the patch notes, it just says that they've optimized it, which is good because it means that people can still play it, and they're improving it still. And I don't know how this is going to come across, so my apologies if you interpret it this way, but I'm kind of happy to see that they've got the HD version out, and that without having to worry about people with not so great performing PCs or laptops, or, you know, what they currently have. Now that there's sort of Wargaming, in a sense, are kind of free to really test the limits of their engine, and to really see what kind of performance we can get out of this engine that previously, you know, while on one hand, you know, previously, you know, not previously possible due to the fact that we've got, you know, that we had people with not so great computers or laptops. So it's nice to see that we can really test what this particular engine does. And admittedly, this is probably going to be more evident in other maps and in the second episode when we're in the maps. That's what I meant to say. But at the same time, you know, I can kind of see something coming through. Like, when I came in for my World of Tanks, I saw an initial, slightly different. The lighting has been reworked. It looks slightly, it just looks nicer. It just gives that extra oomph, It's certainly not World of Warships style, because goddamn, World of Warships went from, yeah, that's pretty good, to, I believe there is a quota for which a gamer will, instead of going, oh, that's graphically really nice, and I can see all the lovely, there's literally just, oh. Anyway, so in this particular branch, we're looking at a pretty decent improvement over the graphics, and I'm looking forward to seeing what kind of graphical improvements that Wargaming will attempt to try and place upon this game. So that's that to look forward to. Okay, so now that we've talked a bit about the game engine and other stuff like that, let's actually get onto some content. So, if you're the owner of a Tier 7 Aufklärungspanther and a Tier 9 heavy VK4502B, then you might be really happy, or kind of annoyed, depending on how you view these, as these two vehicles are going to be replaced. Or, obviously, first iteration might not be replaced, we don't know, speculation, don't guarantee it. These two particular vehicles possibly will be replaced. As you can see, the landscape now is quite different, as you now have the option to have, instead of getting up this particular light tank line and going up the way, instead of having the Aufklärungspanther, you have, if I can just go for it, this thing. Sorry for a bit of a lackluster intro, but I'm not so fussed on light tanks. Yes. This is the Sparpanzer 1C. A relatively small vehicle for at Tier 7. Has 880 hit points. Weighs about 9.75 tons with a few equipment modules attached. This is kind of, I decided to simulate what it could possibly be like if I ever was to have the thing. She doesn't have much engine power, but because it's so light, it gets you at a pretty decent top speed of 58 kilometers per hour. Having a look at the horsepower per ton, you're looking at about 20 with equipment and everything attached horsepower per ton. So 20 horsepower per ton. She's quite maneuverable. She can be quite a maneuverable thing, I imagine. The traverse speed is absolutely fantastic, being at 44. Anything above 40, I like. It's just a thing. I love it when a vehicle can do it, because it means then you can get out of a situation that goes bad faster. You can maneuver to dodge things faster. Faster the tank, the better it is in certain ways. Armor-wise, bugger all. Literally the personification of fuck all in the terms for armor. Tier 1s can pen you. Even the LOL tractor with its the first ever 20mm gun, which only has 23 penetration, can piss through your armor. So, obviously, that goes without saying, don't brawl. You do get a slight buff, you do get a couple of saving graces. First of all, 15mm at the front, plus potential gun mantlet. You also have very sloped angling here. So if somehow, don't ask me how, somehow you bounce. And I would like to see, like, if you have a replay and you bounce something in this or the live version, I'd like for you to send it to me, because I am eternally curious to see if this thing can bounce anything. And I'm not talking a sort of weird scrape-off, but that's it, even a weird scrape-off would be interesting. I'm talking an actual, what the fuck, I bounced something of any tier, almost, because nothing will, there is literally nothing that will not go through you. I know it's a double negative, so, yeah, there might be something, but still, it's just, the likelihood is so small. But yeah, the armor is absolutely terrible. Turret traverse speed, very good, being at 44. View range, a little bit interesting. I say interesting. A little odd, as you only have 380. Now, that is the exact same as my Tiger tank. Now, this could just be because of balancing limitations, but I would have previously thought a light tank would be able to have a slightly better view range, considering that it needs to be able to dodge and weave and duck and dive rather than to brawl. So I don't know. Maybe because it's at tier 7, it shouldn't get too much of a good thing, but I would have thought it could have gotten slightly better. But that's just me. For the signal range, though, it wins the roost. He has the SEM25, which... Aha! Right, that's an interesting feature. If you get the top radio for this, you can get the top radio for the Leopard PTA. I did not know that. And I can't believe oh, yeah, it's because... Okay. Okay, yeah, that's something to think about then. Yeah, because I haven't unlocked it or nothing, have I? So that's something which is intriguing to note. I shall definitely make sure to learn about that. But still, there you go. Another interesting feature. It does carry over to some things. Now, you may be wondering what kind of weapon system this particular vehicle has. Well, let me take you to the research tree. So as you can see, when you start off this particular weapon, you get this gun. It's a 90mm D921F1. Lots of fancy words, which basically means you get a 7.69 rounds per minute, a pretty healthy 170 pen, 240 damage, 0.3 accuracy, and a 2.5 second aiming time. Now, for a stock gun, that isn't bad. Now, I know you're a light tank, so you're not going to be enjoying the benefits of decent matchmaking, but at the same time, you are at tier 7, and at tier 7, there is a heavy tank called the IS, which relies on 175 for its top gun pen. So to only be 5 less on your stock gun, that's good. That's really good. So definitely a good thing with that, with regards to that. Then, of course, you come to something interesting. Now, with this particular tank, it actually gives you a varied option in tactics, because not only do you get an upgraded variant, you don't get any higher calibers, but you get a 90mm gun. Now, this is the thing. Instead of just getting a better one and a better one, it actually gives you the option of a standard loader and an auto loader. Now, depending obviously on what kind of light tank driver you are, you pretty much will be given an option between the two. There isn't really that much of a difference at the moment, they might change it later on, between the standard loader and the auto loader. Now, the standard loader is as such: 7.59 rounds a minute, 180 pen, 240 damage, 0.36 accuracy, and a 2.2 second aiming time over the top gun, which is 3 shells in a mag, 3 seconds per shot, and you have a 20-second reload time. Same pen, same alpha, slightly worse accuracy, and slightly worse aiming time, and also is ever so slightly heavier. So, with that all in mind, also to note, both guns have roughly the equal amount of ammunition. You only get 39 with the autoloader and 40 with the standard loader. So, with that in mind, the question will beg to any of you experienced light tankers out there: what kind of style can you play? I mean, to be honest with you, I'm a standard loader guy. I prefer to have standard loading stuff, and I'm going to use this as a term, and I hope it actually, in my wildest dreams, maybe they'll use this in actual term, but I think I will use the standard loader more, because although auto-loading is nice, I personally don't think I would be able to utilize auto-loading to an effective standard. I think I've spent too much time with standard loaders now. I can't really go back. It's a bit like driving an automatic versus a manual. It's like you can only, if you learn one way, you can kind of be stuffed for the rest of it. So, with that said, an interesting tank nonetheless. We take the stats up of this particular gun again. It's not bad. It's not great, considering you're a scout tank. What Dan said, you shouldn't really be trying to shoot stuff anyway. You do get premium on this gun with 250 pen. So there is that to think about, but it's only 240 alpha, and the shells for a premium shell do cost you 4,000 credits each. So it's a matter of, do you really want to waste 4,000 credits per shot on something which only does 240 alpha? Big question. Probably easy to answer as well. Okay, so we've had a look at the Sparpanzer. Now let's have a look at the Tier 9 tank, which is set to replace the Tier 9 heavy tank, VK4502B. I give you the Mauschen, or Mausten, or something like that. I don't think I'm going to pronounce it in any other way, so I might have to come up with a nickname for this particular thing. Anyhow, so, with regards to that, this is the Tier 9 mouse, baby. And, probably going to say that wrong, but still. And as you can see, she is looking a bit like a beast. Obviously, going to be taking after some traits, and maybe this is an interesting way of, maybe this is a better thing, maybe some people might like this particular vehicle, maybe not. I'm intrigued to seeing how it goes, because it may depend on whether or not I would go up this particular line, if I am intrigued. So let's have a look at its stats. 2,000 hit points. Pretty good. Definitely going to be losing those hit points in regards to the amount of stuff that is going to be fired at it. I fear most of it will be gold. Extremely heavy, 172 tons, 0.3. Got to remember, the little things matter. With 3 equipment modules attached. And it's, oh, that's really heavy. I think that's even heavier than the, yes, it's even heavier than an E100. Whoop whoop! E100's lighter. She's a sexy thin girl. No. I'm not biased, I swear. But that obviously means that the 1500 horsepower, in combination with it, can I actually see her horsepower per ton? No! I really want to see how freaking slow she is, because it's only 20 kilometers per hour. Hey! KV1 style. Going at 20 kilometers per hour with a 16 traverse speed. Yeah. This is going to be an arty target for damn sure. Those 2,000 hit points are going to be nommed up by most, if not all, artillery that will engage it. It's literally... I feel sorry for anyone who drives these particular vehicles, because probably going to be feeling sorry for myself at some point if I ever do go down it, because artillery love big, slow, hulking targets. And this thing probably fits all of those descriptions. And what's worse, she's got a few weak points. But going on to weak points, let's have a look at hull, which she doesn't really have much of. Well, she has a lot of, but there are bits and bobs where you can clearly see some form of weakness. But let's talk about the hull. 200 at the front, and as you can see, well angled. I mean, if you have a look on this particular slope right here, minus the bulge of the machine gun port, it is incredibly well angled. Very, very well angled. Definitely looking to be something which is nice. So that is certainly something you want to have on the front of that. On the sides, it is 180, which, in all honesty, side scraping wise, only need to angle ever so slightly, probably a little bit more like that, and you're instantly bouncing. Hell, you don't even have to worry, but it's like someone's caught your side there, that's going to bounce, that's going to bounce, that's going to possibly bounce, that won't bounce. It's literally, depending on what kind of gun you're firing at them, this thing seems very trollish. And of course you have the 150 to the rear, but even that has got some pretty decent angling. I would argue it's about the same angling as the rear of the actual mouse, of which, yeah. Obviously, it's got its flat turret like the mouse, but it's certainly, for rear armor, that's pretty good. You know, you could argue the best arse in the game. Why? It's not super flat. It probably won't bounce much, but it can possibly bounce. Going on to the turret, similar to the mouse at the front, little fatter, little easier. You've got the chance to bounce more or less on some parts. 240 to the front. You have got more of a sloping alley, but there is a bit of a big area in regards to the side, if we can get close. Obviously, this particular area, from that point to here, guns will probably go straight through that because, well, it's flat. So if you're an experienced mouse driver, or you're experienced in other tanks like this, then you'll know what to do in order to counter it. There's 200mm of side armor as well. There is a bit of a weak point here as well. As you can see, a completely flat bit. Like, it doesn't do an exceptional amount of angling, but it does do a fair amount of angling, or at least attempts angling. But unfortunately, there is a bit of a welding section here, which kind of seems a bit like a, hey look, it's not completely overpowered, we've made it a bit flat for you. So there's that problem, which is not the greatest. but I imagine you can sort of grin and bear it if you can find it. And then finally, 175 to the rear. So more armor on the rear than there was on the top. So basically what will happen is boink, boink, and that will probably bounce off straight through. Now, let's get on to some of the weak points. I did mention the bulge at the front, but and I also mentioned the things at the side. So yeah, this is one of the weak points of the vehicle, I imagine. It would be stupid if it wasn't. Obviously, Clearlier does things so that this thing isn't overpowered just on hull. The turret, unfortunately, has a very ugly cupola. Now, something tells me this isn't entirely 100% accurate. It just kind of feels like they latched it on just so that way you can't have a dominating, over-the-top unfair. Because the real mouse doesn't have anything like that. Now, you could argue, oh, but it's a prototype. They probably... I imagine if they wanted something like this, they wouldn't have made it so easy for the cupola to be shot. I imagine that this design is probably what they were thinking more of than this. But, you know, speculation argument, probably for balancing reasons they put it there. But that doesn't mean this thing can't side scrape. I imagine this particular vehicle will be a very good side scraper. It'll just be you'll only see this side of the tank turret more than this particular side. So there's that particular weakness there. You obviously also may have your underglacial weaknesses, but it isn't as large and as visible as the actual mouse. So that's not the Mausian. Nice tank though, but not the Mausian. It also has double tracks, so that might mean increased durability or not as increased durability. Not too sure. Either way, it's a fairly, it's obviously a very well armored, very well, it is a breakthrough tank. So whether or not it's going to do its job, we don't know, but fingers crossed it will. Now, going on further down the list, you have a very slow turret to first speed, not really surprised. A pretty poor, you don't get to upgrade range, of 370 view range. That's biting it, because the E75 gets 400. And this thing doesn't, even with its bigger, fancier cupola. And also, you don't get the better radio. The E75's top radio of the FUG-12 is the same radio that you'll receive in here. So less view range and same signal range. So not the most encouraging of things to have to deal with in this particular vehicle. I would argue that certain things about this tank are nice. Other things, I think, probably a slightly better view range because it's a tier 9 and because, well, look, E75's got it. Why not give it an E75 look, you know? It's only fair. I know it's German wargaming, but still, it's I would argue either 380 or 390, but not 370. Just doesn't seem as fair, you know? Yeah, sure, but still. Anyway, moving on to the last thing, the guns. Now let's have a look at the research tree. As you can see, you have a varied selection of guns, and depending on whether or not you've been through this line already or through other German lines, you'll either have a pretty okay grind or a pretty painful grind. Now, if you have never touched a German tank in your life, it's going to be painful. Why? Because most likely you'll not have gotten this gun. You'll start off with this gun, which, ooh, that's just painful. Actually, what kind of gun do you get? You get the shit one. That's gonna be painful. Yeah, so you basically start off with this gun. 200mm of pen, 320. Yeah, just terrible stock gun for a tier 9. So that's gonna be horrible. And you're having to research 44,000. That's a lot to get this gun, which is a slight improvement. 8mm of penetration, slightly better accuracy, still horrendous. No, just the same aiming time, just slightly better pen and whatever, so that's terrible. And then you've got to work with this gun for over 63,000 before you get the E75's L55 gun, which is basically the best one you can grab. Rate of fire is a little interesting, being at 343, but still, whatever. So yeah, obviously 246 pen, 490, good accuracy, good aiming time. I wonder if it's any different if we quickly nip back out onto the E75. So that's we're just looking at this, and accuracy You see and stuff. E75, your top gun, is actually better than the Mauschen, to a small degree. You get that. Better aiming time and, I think, accuracy. So if we close that and then go on to this, yeah, better accuracy by a chunk. But anyhow, so, you know, this is the gun I would say is probably going to be its best. But there is one more gun which is available for the Mauschen, which isn't available for the Maus tank. And that is this gun. This is basically your E100 at tier 9. This is the L37 150mm gun. She has no premium. There is no premium with this thing. I think they counted the sort of prospect of an E100 having heat. But no, there's no premium with this. It's just standard and high explosive. Rate of fire, naturally going to be slow. Almost artillery-like accuracy. And a 0. Okay, probably worse. Not as bad as artillery, but, you know, you get the drill. Pretty terrible accuracy. Pretty horrible aiming time. So, you know, at the prospect of higher alpha, if you pen, you have the option of utilizing it. Now, for me, I think I would stick with this. But, you know, always up to experimentation. But something tells me this particular gun, the 128, is probably going to be better. But, like I said, it's still something to go for. And an intriguing question will be, is, you know, if you haven't, you know, if, for example, in my case, I've already got most of the equipment here. So, really, it'll only be just to get the top, once I've gotten everything, it'll only just be the grind towards the Maus tank. So the question will be, because you don't actually need this gun to get to the Maus. So the question will be, do you want to be spending 63,000 research on a potential for higher alpha, or do you just want to go for the tank? Some people would just say go for the tank, other people would like the higher alpha. It's all, you know, it's really up to you on that question there. So, an interesting tank, but certainly something to have a good think about. Okay, so now that we've had a look at the two new vehicles, let's have a quick look at the new vehicles, well I say new, the vehicles that have just been receiving a nice HD effect. And as you can see, it is a fair amount of vehicles. One quick side note, I couldn't get all of the vehicles listed for a couple of reasons. First of all, one of which, the Panther M10, is no longer available for sale, and the rest are either gift tanks or tanks that you can receive as rewards. So the tanks you will see are the ones that you can get at the current moment. And we start off this train with the T62A. There you go. So there she is, T62A. Battered, bashed, and with a log, I hope. Yes, there is a log under there. She is Russian. And fuel tanks on the side. Looking very, very modern. Looking interesting. And having played with this particular vehicle in Armoured Warfare and seeing this particular vehicle in real life when I went to the Bovington Tank Museum, I will say she is a lot smaller than I previously thought. I know it sounds really stupid because I could have just used that as a focal point, but whenever you see something in video games, you don't quite believe the reality until you see it in real life. So that's pretty freaking awesome. Naturally, I mean, as I said, I've not got this vehicle. It looks pretty cool. I like what they've done with the textures and how it made it look even more strong, even with the Russian tank. So there you go. There is the T62A given a nice little paint job to make it look even sexier. Right, the next particular vehicle we will be seeing is the VK3601H, has been given a HD effect. Yes, this is the VK3601H, and it looks pretty nice. Nice texturing of the tracks there. The armor as well looks pretty badass. Cupola looks quite nice now. It's not so sticking out. The obvious reference from a KV-1. Just a bunch of nice looking things, to be honest, with the buckets on the side. I always wonder what they were until of course, they stuck that there. And I'm like, oh my god, it's a bucket! Looking incredibly cool. I should probably also point out the gun that most people will be using on this particular vehicle. Quick side note. This gun is not worth it. Seriously, it's not worth it at all. Why? Because the Wunderwaffe, as I call it, is far better. And here's why. It's not only on a freaking tier 5 as well. That's pretty awesome. Better rate of fire, better penetration by far. yes, a smaller alpha, but considering it's got better accuracy, better and the same aiming time as this gun, you'll make up for the lack of alpha on this than you would in this. Really, this is better. Anyway, going back to the HD effect. Yeah, looking incredibly good, and certainly might even prompt me on getting my vehicle back, just to sort of to see it in its glorious fashion as we kill stuff with it. So, awesome sauce. So, the next variety of vehicles to be going into are the is the M46 pattern, the T110E3, and the T110E4 from the Americans. So, without further ado, here we go. Okay. That turret looks like someone's blowing into a straw. They're going... No, balloon. Someone desperately trying to get a rubber dinghy at a beach. That's what this turret looks like. Sorry, America. You do. Oh, I love where the stop symbol is on that. That's awesome. Clearly wargaming are listening to clans. Now, this turret looks pretty cool. I'm liking the lighter side of the olive colouring. I have to be honest with you, seeing the non-HD vehicles is alright. It's like, they're okay, but I like how this sort of other variant is bringing out the HD effect. You know, it's really starting to, give an extra personality to this sort of thing. So that's really awesome. Very much looking forward to seeing this. Well, obviously it's nice looking forward to seeing another awesome vehicle coming out into the fray. So now let's have a look at the T110E3. My. She looks nice. Like the little railing on the side there, and that looks really awesome. Big gun with a rifling effect there. Got very nice tracks. What I like is also they're trying to go for the... It's been around... I mean, I know they do the sort of battle weary, or it's been around for a while. To be honest with you, what I like more is when you see things like this, where you sort of see a bit of rust coming through, a little bit of, yeah, this thing has been around for a few years, sort of thing. Like, you're not really getting anything brand spanking new, it's sort of there, you know, it's not so... not just bent and damaged, but sort of slightly faded in the colour and everything, like the steel starting to sort of perk through on that point. Stuff like that, like, you know, even the door latches at the back of the engine, you know, that kind of thing. I like that in these particular vehicles, and I do like that. It's pretty impressive. Going on to the T110E. Ooh. I think I found something I like. Oh my. That looks really, really awesome. That is actually pretty freaking awesome. I'm beginning to like this vehicle a little bit more. I'm liking this. I don't know what it was about the other one. The non-HD one is okay. I'm not too fussed, but this one really emphasizes the turret for me. I don't know what it is, but it really sort of goes to make the turret look a lot better. The turret of this thing, badass, and definitely something potentially wanting to go on to have a crack at. Maybe even go finally up that American TD line and hopefully actually do something about that, because, you know, with all the other TDs I've got, it'd be nice to actually do something like that. So yeah, definitely looking forward to having a crack at that, and definitely looking forward to seeing this thing in action, because it looks pretty damn cool. And I'm looking forward to potentially owning this thing, because I kind of want to have one now. It does look pretty awesome. So, moving on from the Americans, we've got a couple of Frenchy tanks. One premium, one non-premium. Let's start with the non-premium. And that first one is the AMX 50-100. It's quite an old sort of... I say old. It's quite a famous tank. It's one of the more popular tanks used in skirmishes. More commonly used in other games. Like, I would argue that this is the most famous of auto-loading tanks. Like, of all the auto-loaders in the game, this is probably the most common one you see. Or at least in my experience. The first time I saw an autoloader, this was the thing I saw. I know it sounds really stupid, but when I was playing early on, I wasn't paying attention to what tank was which. It was literally Tier 7, Tier 8, that's when I started seeing this thing, and I've seen shit tons of this thing. I really love this. I really love the style of what they've done here. I'm not such a big fan of the colour, and obviously I'm not, you know, I don't know. I will say, it does look a little better now that it's HDified. With the other colour, it wasn't so... didn't feel there was any weight to it. Like, it was a bit more like a blandish sort of thing. But now that you've actually got some proper, proper HD effects, it does look a lot nicer, and possibly still not probably going to get it, but it still looks a lot nicer. Looks a lot shinier, properly French, I would say. There's lots of nice things. No white flags though. Way. But still, it looks pretty awesome, and certainly will be a very nice thing to look at when you're shooting at or trying to run away from in combat. So, let's go from a really nice-looking tank to a fucking ugly one. Unfortunately, I did actually do it. I was kind of, I accidentally did have a little peek at this one, because I was getting everything organised, and instead of just clicking on the symbol, I clicked on it, and I was like, ah. So my apologies, but God, those treads. Ugh. I mean, it wasn't so bad when I first started. You know, is there ever kind of a day where you're playing a particular video game or watching a particular program, and because you had it at a standard definition or lower quality graphics, you were like, yeah, you know, it's okay, or oh yeah, that's a bit, not so great, or whatever, like a horror game or something. And when they either remake it to a HD effect, or they make certain things, they add the extra oomph to it in detail, you sort of go, ah, like that, and the next time you see them, or like, oh god, it's even worse now. Well, in this case, it was, you try and focus away from it, but those tracks are god-awful. They look really nasty. I mean, sure, they look more like they'd be suited on the moon than actual on combat. So, the only cool thing I could say from this particular design is the exhaust manifold on the back. It does make it look a bit like a hot rod, but no, not so keen on the tracks. Everything else is pretty fine, just not the tracks. Tracks are freaking ugly. Sorry, France, you can do well with one, but not the other. Anyway, moving over to Britain, we have three vehicles that have been HDified. First of which, the Churchill Mark 7, and looks pretty sweet. Actually, it looks pretty nice. Definitely, I liking the brighter color on this one. Like, the other one was okay, but once again, it's like now that you can have a bit of a brighter, more lifelike color, it actually adds more of a life to the particular machine. And she does look pretty decent for it. And I'm never gonna like the look of those MGs, the coax and everything. It looks very much built to the task, nothing more. So even I'd be impressed if you could tow a Churchill. But still, nonetheless, it looks pretty damn awesome, and certainly looking forward to seeing her in combat. May even be worth going back into the Churchill line to grind some more British heavy tanks. Not sure, like I said, not entirely sure if I will. I don't even know if I have this vehicle yet. Possibly not. Probably I still only have the Churchill one. But still, certainly going to be something to think about when, when this patch does come out. Going on to the next one, it is the Caernarvon, and she, once again, it's more built to the task, but that said, it does look really nice. We're starting to finally get some more modern traits into the British Army and into the British weaponry, and it does look pretty boss. Obviously that's the Top Gun, yep. So, yeah, for a heavy tank, it looks pretty damn good. Armor-wise, you can see, it looks very nice. You've got the sort of slightly more brighter colours, the scratching on the side, you've got a sort of slight bits of damage. Armor, the paint not working as well now. She's been around for a few years, probably spending a bit of time on the line before being sent into combat. So certainly an awesome-looking tank, and definitely something to look forward to utilising if I ever do go up the line. Now, finally, the Conqueror. Ooh, she looks nice. Yep, I'm liking. She does look nice. Oh my. Ah, that looks really cool. Not gonna lie, that is pretty damn sweet. That's pretty cool. Not gonna lie, that's a nice looking tank. Nothing else really I can say about it. It's the same chassis, different turret, but looking nice nonetheless. Yeah, defo looking forward. That is certainly something potentially worth a grind. Cupola looks sweet. Little cover on the cover. Stuff you can store your food at. Spare engine bits, I don't know. Yes, I know a lot about tanks. Anyway, looking fantastic. Definitely looking forward to seeing this thing in combat, or being this thing in combat. Certainly pretty impressive. So, there you guys have it. Not the greatest amount of content in regards to stuff coming in, but that said, I am immensely curious as to how these two particular new vehicles are going to affect how the game works. The Mausen being with a variety of gun choices. By the way, side note, if you hadn't noticed, you can mount the L55 with the stock tracks. Now, the only thing that changes in regards to the Mausen is its traverse speed. Instead of it being 14 when you go to when you have this, it will improve to 16. Maybe power to weight ratio as well might be affected. I don't know. Probably will be. But still, you don't have to worry if you're thinking, oh god, I can't mount the top gun, whatever. You can mount the top gun, there's no problem. But then, like I said, I'm quite interested to seeing how the Sparpanzer will go as well. Because it's a new vehicle, and I hope that I hope it's like the Panzer 1C, because that would be awesome if there was a Panzer 1C of tier 7s. So anyway, guys, thank you very much for watching this. If you like this kind of content, do let me know in the comment section down below, clicking on the like button, and if you want to have more content, by all means, subscribe to the channel. If you are also curious about how the series will continue, go down to the description and you will find the link to the second episode, whereupon I will be joining my good friend Nimbus, or without him, depending on whether we can or not, to record and play with the new vehicles in question. So, thank you very much for watching. This is Crap Hunters signing out. Have a good one, guys.